The following broadcast is intended for mature audiences. These are real people sharing very real, deeply personal experiences. This content may be considered triggering for others and for those who are sharing. The chat room is a privilege intended for discussions and sharing. You are not being asked to agree, but you are being asked to stay civil and refrain from personal attacks. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to Am I Mental, a weekly mental health podcast where real people talk about real mental health issues and things that affect their mental health. Today, I'm your host, Bexy. E will be out of commission for this episode due to a family birthday, and we're very excited for him to be able to spend that time with his family. With me, as always, is our co-host C.
Hello.
And we are very excited to be hosting this episode for you tonight. We have a wonderful guest. But before we get to them, I want to remind you guys that there are ways, if you would like to help support the podcast, please share the episodes that resonate with you. Please share the page, the page for the podcast with your friends, with your family. Let everybody know, what we're doing. We're trying to, erase the stigma behind mental health, one episode at a time. I really think that our guest this week is going to resonate with quite a few of you. I know it did with me. So I would like to introduce you to Jim. Why don't you go ahead and say hello?
Hi.
Welcome to Am I Mental?
Thanks.
Yes. Hello.
Why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about what we're going to be listening to and talking about today?
Well, I'm Jim, and I live in the desert, and I'm very nervous.
Oh, it's okay. I'm a little bit nervous too, so we can be nervous together.
It's okay.
My experience with mental illness has been predominantly depression. I'm diagnosed by bipolar, but it expresses itself mostly in depression, and that's been the case since I was a little kid. So I'm going to be sharing with everybody writings that I've done over the past 3 years during this process of recovery, so that's it. Yeah.
All right, that sounds like we're going to get into some, very deep and very serious subject matter here. And I do want to say, even though we play the disclaimer before the show, this episode could be very intense for some people. It could be very triggering, and we want you to know that if you feel at any point in time while you're listening to this that it is something that may affect your mental health in a negative way, please do not think that we will be offended if you tell us, hey, I have to step back and I have to go, or I have to take a moment, because we all understand that. And after, all that we have been through and shared, us as the hosts, our listeners, our guests, we're all very, understanding about things like that. So now that I've said that, I'm going to let Jim go ahead and start reading his writings and tell us the story.
All right. Thank you very much. I would like to express my gratitude for this opportunity. It's really a big deal. A year ago, I could not have seen myself doing this. 6 months ago, even, I couldn't have seen myself doing this, although at that point it was beginning to bloom. So the material I'm going to present to you today is raw. I'll be sharing bits of my story, but in many ways, it's our story. It's a passionate, painful, and scary story, and it's unfathomably beautiful and empowering. I ask you to go on this journey with me, being very mindful of how you are receiving the information. You will give yourself clues when you hear things that are true for you. Listen to yourself as best as you are able, and however you are able is enough. I want to set an intention right now that we will, as best as we can, look beyond critical self-judgment. This is ultimately a story of compassion for self. If you should feel the cold sting of a self-damning reflection, note it and give it a hug. Really. These reflexive judgments we put ourselves through are misguided attempts at self-care. What I know now is that if I hate myself for something, it's because my perception of the event or act is intricately entangled with an automatic, subconscious defensive response. A defensive response. I'm trying to protect myself from a perceived threat, and my subconscious is largely in charge of my perceptions. This tends to be an entangling mess. So let's untangle it a bit together. In 2017, I experienced what I think is very likely my last suicide attempt. It was another trying example of a cycle that had been playing over and over again throughout my 4.5 decades of life. So in 2017, I had reached a point where my bottom became lower and lower and lower, and I met myself. So in 2015, I met a counselor who started me on a journey of inner child work, and I was very resistant to it as it appeared to me to be too woohoo. But it also resonated with me, and so I stuck with it. This first writing I'm going to read to you is after 2 years of work, and it's following the collapse of the relationship I was in at the time. So here we go. This was a question on Quora, and the individual had asked for a reason to live. This was my response. I had responded to them previously, and I wasn't happy with it, so this is the second response. First, I pray you are okay. I think of you often and hold you close to my heart. Second, I feel I made a terrible mistake by not opening my original response with a strong suggestion that you seek professional help immediately. I have a somewhat jaded perspective when it comes to psychological evaluation and treatment, as I have been misdiagnosed and improperly medicated more than once. However, when it comes down to it, I have had several therapists that have enabled me to find the strength and purpose to keep seeking safety and wholeness. I owe them my life. Please be well. You deserve it. I am in a similar place. I have been experiencing chronic depression nearly all my life. I will be 46 soon. I cannot tell you what to do. I won't give you advice. I can share with you my experience and what is keeping me alive. What follows may be hard to read. I begin by explaining my experience with the suffering. Please read it through. It begins with painful desperation, but ends with beautiful truth and hope. I feel bone-crushing despair, heart-rending hopelessness. There are momentary reprieves, inevitably followed by ferocious recurrences of the same. Sapping hope and power from my consciousness, it falls over me from within me like a crushing pile of sand. I gasp for breath as I try to imagine a life free from this hell. This coarse sand holds my limbs immobile as it fills my airways with abrasive self-loathing and merciless self-judgment. Weak and powerless, I struggle to resist the compulsion to bring it to an end, knowing in my core that suicide is not the answer, but to be free.
Oh, I think this is a record. because he and I are both in tears already. I really, you're speaking to a lot of us. Words
Okay.
that maybe we didn't have at the time. We're okay. Well,
All right.
I'm okay. I can't speak for C.
Continue. I really want to hear it.
Me too.
But to be free, free from the ever-present knowledge of my undeniable failure, free from the ever-present crushing pain. My garden is dead, my flowers are brown and dry, my fruit is rotten. Everything I ever cultivate ends up destroyed by me. Romantic relationships, employment, my shelter, my literal gardens, all gone. Homeless, unemployed, broke, hopeless, powerless, and guilty. I spin around and drown in a self-perpetuating toilet flushed with my own passionate tears and relentless self-pity. The love I have for my community and for my inner innocent child keeps death's hand at bay. Having tried to kill myself before and then being rescued 30 years ago now, I know what my suicide would do to them and to me, but something has got to give. Depression, my cross. It immobilizes my hope, it dries out my soul, it saps my beauty, and it makes me ugly. It kills me. My heart, my soul is diseased with a putrid concoction of imbalanced neurological chemicals. This noxious soup makes my heart's apparent reflection warped and filthy. It fuels its fetid self with ill-conceived self-condemnation and crawls through my consciousness with destructive abandon, feeding ferociously upon any vestiges of any hope it should find. I am not it. It cannot define me. It cannot be my only lot in this life. I know there is more. I just know it. But how do I be free? Believing is everything. Looking back on my life, I have ever increasing clarity that I've only achieved what I believe, be it good or bad. I achieved a living philosophy of self-defeat because as a child, I believed I was a worthless piece of shit. I think this may have been the onset of my powerlessness regarding my imbalanced nature. I was a better father than my father because I believed I would be. I am a great actor, culinary artist, musician, gardener, artist, caregiver, friend, lover, partner, healer, and writer because I believe I am these things. However, none of these skills lend to me any value, no matter how much I have wished it were so. I control my destiny. I write it every day. It is not bound by linear time. It is predetermined as I cultivate it and author it in the moment, now, then, and forever. Is there a happy ending? Yes, because I believe there must be. I deserve no less simply because I am. Months ago, I met my inner child. He showed me that I could cure myself. There was weeping and gnashing of teeth. There was grieving and denial and empowerment and joy and regret and loss and immeasurable gain. I wrote that I had found the cure to my malady and then was shunned for my revelation by those with whom I shared said revelation. They said to me, you, through decades of failure, have already proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that your suffering will never end. You just need to develop better coping skills. I abandoned my revelation, believing their disbelief, and proceeded to deteriorate again, rotting from the spirit out as quickly as ever before, until again, knocking on death's door, I found my inner child once more. He's 4. Sometimes he's 8 or 14 or 18 or 31 or 46. If I close my eyes and look within, I can ask him what he needs. He always knows, and he's never wrong. He's incapable of lying to me. Lately, he's directing me to consider the power of belief and something else too, gratitude. Where healing is concerned, they go hand in hand. I'm beginning to understand now that one of the most beautiful things in the human experience is our ability to embrace gratitude and belief. It cultivates compassion and forgiveness and empathy despite overwhelming evidence that should dictate something to the contrary. Gratitude. When I am able to, and I sit with it in its purest form, it is euphoric. It's ecstasy. It begins in my core, somewhere between my ribs and my breath, and it washes through me like an immense, unstoppable wave. It is warm there, being that wave. Once begun, it overcomes my senses and fills every fiber of my being with peace and boundless joy. It holds fear with compassion, grief with understanding, pain with healing, and love encompasses all. It makes the impossible possible and the unbearable, it transforms into joy. To sit with it in every moment of being would be heaven. In my core, my deepest desires are obscured by doubt, fear, and its subsequent pain, awash in that fetid neurological soup. Obscured, but not completely hidden. I know what they are, my deepest desires. I know what they are. Harmony, passion, peace, grace, healing, authenticity, freedom, acceptance, growth, power, generosity, compassion, beauty, empathy, courage, partnership, intimacy, community, and wisdom. What I want, I already have. Knowing this, accepting this, living this, sets the wave in motion. My deepest gratitude for you. I see you, and I see that you are beautiful. Would that I could show you your own heart's reflection, should you believe otherwise. Is there a happy ending? Actually, I'm not certain there is an ending at all. What do I believe? Language, words are extremely powerful. What I tell myself, I then hear in the deepest recesses of my belief construct. As I change my personal narrative, I change my reality. A good therapist, accurate diagnosis, proper meds, and an empathetic support network can be invaluable to weather the storms. Also, for me, service to others has been immeasurably helpful. However, for me, I'm sick of coping, sick of revisiting my horror over and over and over, sick of self-medicating. I'm transforming my cross into a beautifully adorned pedestal from which I can see endless possibilities. I'm replanting my garden again for the last time. I'm through being victimized by my imbalanced brain. My spirit is running the show now, simply because I am. I choose to believe that that alone makes me worthy. Whatever it is that I am has always been and will always be enough. And perhaps this affliction of depression is not a curse at all. Perhaps it's a gift. Perhaps I have nothing to cure. I choose. Ultimately, regardless of my circumstances, I choose. Through my experience with depression, I have a door to the center of my being. I see myself more clearly than many people have the capacity or desire to do. There is an ocean of passion there from which I can draw truth, empathy, compassion, beauty, power, and anything else I choose. The fear and despair are the doors. As I accept them with empathy and compassion for myself, they open, and the power of my personal creation lies within. It hasn't been easy. I know that it will get easier again. It always does. And each time I learn more and more. I pray that what I've learned can help you shine a light into your heart. You are beautiful. You are enough simply because you are.
I have no words that are good enough at this moment. I don't know. I can't speak for other listeners, but for myself, I've had any of those same struggles. I've had days where I doubted that my existence, that I should even exist. And it absolutely breaks my heart to hear that there are other people that have felt that way in their lifetime. But oh, how it makes my soul soar to hear that they've overcome. because no one should have to feel that way.
No, I shouldn't.
I knew I was gonna cry for this episode. I knew it from the moment that we started the interview the other day. I had no idea how quickly it would hit me.
Devern says, dude, that was everything we all needed to hear.
I agree. I think so many of us needed to hear that. I'm always amazed at how many people grow up not hearing how wonderful and beautiful they are just for existing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that message is kind of left out, isn't it, for the most part?
It does get overlooked quite a bit.
Yeah.
And it's, I know that some people don't ever question the validity of their existence. And I'm glad that there are people that don't. Because, as for me, I lived for years and years until I was about 37, believing that I didn't deserve to live.
Yeah. That was my expectation. But when I was a teenager, I didn't expect to see 18, which is, that was an indication that maybe there was a problem.
I believe felt the same way. Every year since I was 12, I just thought I couldn't make it another year. I couldn't see it happening. And now it's been 5 years and I'm still alive.
Here you are, right? Here you are.
I made it through 37 years of self-doubt and blaming myself for things that were never my fault. And wanting to die, but being so afraid of so much. And now I'm 41 and I'm happy, and I found a way to heal myself. But still hearing those words and hearing everything that I've felt in my life summed up so beautifully, so painfully, but so beautifully. Just
thank you.
It's an amazing thing. I'm so grateful you're still here.
Me too. Absolutely. I was thinking I might choose something that was a little lighter for the next thing, but none of it's any lighter.
We're
also
okay.
For...
There's something I would like to note before we continue, and that there are recurring themes in these writings. And what's really interesting about this is, it's a tired old analogy, but you take an onion and you peel off that outer layer of onion. What do you have when you take that outer layer off is something that's nearly identical to what you had before. And it takes a lot of time and energy to get those layers off and get down to the core of that onion. When you get to the core of it, it's no longer simple just layers. Then it becomes a mess in there, right? It's chunks. And inside of that is a plant. There's life. So I know it's a tired analogy, but it just seems to fit so well. And anyway. So each of these pieces may represent a layer of the onion, and reaching further, deeper levels of understanding regarding previous insights, right? So,
real quick,
Yeah.
It says, I have wondered if I feel like Jim just because sometimes I realize that my mom doesn't actually hate me, and I think of what I have said.
Yeah. Yeah. Perception is everything. And when we're predisposed to be stuck in a particular perception, it can be very difficult to break free of that and see things a different way. Very difficult.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
it definitely can. I mean, I was, as far as me, I was pretty much conditioned to obey and behave and do as others asked of me, and not to put others before myself, because that was what I was taught. And I remember the feeling of relief that washed over me when I finally began to believe that I was important too.
Yeah.
It wasn't just everybody else.
Right.
Because I had value and I had worth. And if there's one thing that I want everybody who hears this to know, is that I can understand how you may feel worthless, but you are not.
Absolutely not worthless. You're valuable simply because you are. And that is truth. There are a few absolutes, I believe, in the world, but one of them is that if you exist, you're worthy, and it seems like a no-brainer.
It really does. But it's amazing how many people aren't taught that.
There's, I think I've determined what I'd like to read next, if y'all are ready.
Okay.
I'm ready.
Yep, okay. Go right ahead.
So a lot of the writing that I did was in response to questions on Quora. This person, I'll just read it. Here we go. What are genuine keys to happiness and breaking free from depression, unhappiness, and general malaise? Thanks for the question. It's a good one. There are 3 keys for me: acceptance, bold, mindful action, and never, ever giving up. It can be very difficult to free myself from a severe depression. It's as if I suddenly find myself trapped in a deep, dark pit. I imagine myself being at the bottom of this pit and seeing a distant pinprick of light far above me. It's the hole through which I must have fallen. The circular wall surrounding me is hard, slick, and smooth. I can touch opposite sides with my arms outstretched. The air smells of mildew and decay. The floor is cobblestone with puddles of self-condemnation, soupy with fear and self-pity. My misery echoes on and on above and around me. It is a terrible place to be, trapped, alone, hopeless. My only hope is that opening to freedom, the tiny light above me, so far out of reach. My every thought, decision, and action must be dredged from that fetid soup that is my poisoned consciousness. Nothing is easy. Even my fingers are heavy. How am I possibly going to break free from this numbing madness? There are a number of strategies I may employ: prescribed medication, self-medication, counseling, volunteering, service work, playing music, writing, social work, spiritual work, research, recreation, exercise, a purposefully healthy diet. The list goes on. The more of these strategies I use concurrently, the more profoundly powerful the healing will be. But the strategies are ineffective without my first key: acceptance. If I'm ever to rid myself of my pit, I must first accept that it's real and I am trapped. I must accept that my previous victories, overcoming my stony prison, don't mean I won't find myself here again. I must accept that my efforts now will be met with resistance from myself. I must meet my resistance with acceptance and compassion in order to free myself from the clutches of the depression. This does not mean that I am then at the mercy of all that I've accepted. In order for me to break free, I must first accept that I'm even here. This gives me a platform from which a truthful perception of my reality is cultivated. When my recovery efforts are based in truth, my recovery is real. If I try to escape my prison with fantastical beliefs that only reflect my perceived shortcomings, I will only find my shortcomings. So, I've accepted my precarious predicament. Now what? Bold, mindful action. This is where my aforementioned strategies come into play. Whichever strategies I choose must be coupled with compassion. I'm in a deep, dark pit. It's going to take a bit of work to get out. It's likely going to take some time, maybe more than I want. Acceptance again, over and over. Acceptance must be practiced throughout my recovery process. It is an integral and ongoing practice. My foundation of truth enables me to start thinking about that little light in a way that's anticipatory. I can begin to believe and hope and boldly proceed. I must boldly proclaim my desire to be free, boldly take my responsibility for my ultimate well-being, and boldly look up towards the light. I must boldly face my fears, boldly thank them for their intent, and then boldly turn my back on them. At some point, after lots of acceptance and loads of not giving up, I have hope strongly envisioned. I can reach up into the darkness with my arm. I can pick that speck of light from the air with my thumb and forefinger and draw it to me. My cold, stony prison dissolves as the little light pulses and expands. The pit, it fades to memory. My mind is healing, my heart is illuminated, and I can clearly see the various paths before me. Acceptance, bold, mindful action, and never, ever giving up are my keys to breaking free.
That is very, very powerful. And I feel like I'm unwittingly I'm wearing the right shirt today because my shirt actually says, "I am enough. Love yourself first. Always keep fighting."
Awesome.
Well said.
Well, we
That's
have.
something that
I was going to say, do we have anything? Any questions from the chat? I see Devern says what he is saying now at 8:31 is everything that I need to do. It's
so we do something to ourselves, right? Where we have insights and then we know the things that we're that we need to do, right?
right.
But then we find
Right.
we find ourselves in a position where perhaps we don't have the energy or the whatever to even accomplish a tiny part of what it is that we envision ourselves doing, and then we turn around and we start kicking ourselves in the ass because we can't do whatever this insight was.
Right.
Well,
And
yeah, so
it's sad when you realize that you have the insight and you know you want to do it, but you're ill-equipped at the moment to be able to put thought into action. I knew for the longest time that I needed help, and I never reached out to anybody until one night someone very intuitive person reached out to me, and at that time they didn't know that I was steadily swallowing pills as I talked to them.
Right.
They didn't find that out until months and months and months later. But that person, with a few words and a very long discussion about things, gave me the insight to realize that I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to die. I wanted to feel better, not only about life, but about myself. And
so yes,
I was ill-equipped with the skills that I had learned in life thus far to be able to help myself heal. But this other person looked at me and said, "Give me your hands, because you may be going through hell, but I'll help you out. You can do this, and it's going to be hard, and you're going to have to work hard, and you're going to have to actually put in the effort, but you are capable of this." And I think that might have been the first time that anybody in my life ever told me I was capable of doing something beautiful and positive, especially for
Wow.
myself.
Yeah. How
And
awesome.
having those moments of clarity, that epiphany that hits you,
Mm-hmm.
is scary. At first I was very scared, and I was very reluctant, because those other thoughts would always echo back, in my head, everything that I was taught. Well, why should you believe this one person when everybody else in your life has, let it be known that you're not worth it. And it just took a matter of time to really believe that, I wasn't the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Not with not in that way.
Right. Not. Yeah. Yeah. The most painful misperceptions are those that have a grain of truth. So, like, you're responsible for your well-being, but then that has this other stuff tag to it that then we value ourselves against, and it's just really it's a it's a hard struggle.
It really is, but it is definitely a struggle that is worth every heart-wrenching step along the way. And it will. There were times when I thought I was going to break, and I never did. E has always called me a willow, because no matter what anything has thrown at me, I've always bent. I will bend in the wind, but I won't break.
Yeah.
And to add to that thought, I've always thought that I was broken. For a long time, I thought I was broken and I needed to be fixed. And now I realize that we aren't broken and we don't need to be fixed, but we are hurt and we need to heal.
Yeah.
And those concepts are completely different.
The definition of recovery is to return to a state of normal. And so when I think about my experience being on this planet, when was I normal? Well, I think that was between the ages of 0 and 4. So I have to go back to normal. That means I have to go back to being 4 years old, which is really a hard pill for me to swallow, because it's just really woo-hoo. I have a problem with that. But it's not woo-hoo. So what I found over the past 5 years with intensive self reflection and also research is that this this place where psychology meets our heart is where science meets magic. This is my take on things, of course, because those things that seem so woohoo, they're finding in neurological research that there's truth to this stuff. And I've just begun looking into it, so I can't speak to in any authority on it. But the Dr. Jung's shadow theory is very loudly true for me, and I actually have a piece on that I intend to share. But yeah, I mean, this is such an intensely complicated experience. And then at the core of it, it's very, very simple for me. But getting to that core, it's peeling off those onion layers and crying with every damn layer. And that's okay. the closer I get to being recovered, the more okay all of this stuff is. And in my experience, I've survived 3 suicide attempts, overt suicide attempts, and then lots of behavior where I was trying to rid myself of myself. But anyway, there's very little that I would go back and change now. There are a few things, but very little. And I've heard it expressed by naysayers that when people who are struggling with mental illness and they reach a point in recovery where they say they wouldn't go back and change anything, the naysayers say, well, that's just an excuse and that's just another coping mechanism. And honestly, being here now, I can say that it's absolute truth, and it's really quite beautiful. Is there anything else from the chat room, or should I continue? Should we keep talking? What would you like to do?
There is, I think the chat is just, so our listeners are just sort of riveted. There's nothing in there right now, so please continue.
All right.
Yeah.
I've pulled up, this is another response on Quora. The question was, what brings you the most serenity in the midst of strife? Here we go. What brings me the most serenity in the midst of strife? Interesting question. My strife is chronic depression. The answer isn't immediately clear for me, as I find serenity is currently outside of my capacity to see it. This will take some investigating. Thanks for the question. Strife. Angry or bitter disagreement over fundamental.
I think we might have froze for a moment.
Oh,
Whoops.
hello.
Should I start over?
Welcome back. Welcome
Yes,
back.
yes,
Sorry.
please. Everything got a
when
little
did you
cut off.
Okay. All right. What brings me the most serenity in the midst of strife? Interesting question. My strife is chronic depression. The answer isn't immediately clear for me, as I find serenity is currently outside of my capacity to see it. This will take some investigating. Thanks for the question. Strife. Angry or bitter disagreement over fundamental issues. Conflict. It is conflict. It is angry, struggling with resentment. It is pain, external and internal. It is emotional chaos and cold, hard hatred. It is seemingly constant, merciless, malicious, and unforgiving. It is hell. Strife. It is a state of being overcome by blame and hostility from within. It is ugly, angry, and cold. I can say that I'm familiar with strife. We're roommates. We go way back. I can't say that we're friends, but we know each other pretty well. It's a sad, sick relationship. Serenity, peace, calm, safety in the midst of blooming turmoil. I know without a doubt that my deepest desires revolve around an expectation and need for serenity. Serenity sounds like relief. It sounds like forgiveness, gentleness, and compassion. It sounds like freedom from the nearly ever-present pain. It sounds like fantasy. What is it exactly? Serenity. It's defined as a state of being calm, peaceful, and untroubled. I can be calm amid strife. I can be peaceful amid strife. I can be untroubled amidst strife, but how? Connection, empathy, gratitude, and acceptance. At times, this experience with serenity has been a gift from a deeply trusted loved one or a friend, an ear to speak to, a heart to embrace mine. Someone who reflects, to me, I see your pain, it is justified, and your sum of parts is greater than your pain. Someone who can then help guide me to a state in which I can accept my strife, just accept it for what it is. No romanticism, no struggling for justification or meaning, just shit happens. Acceptance. This serenity is fleeting and short-lived. This lends me the temporary ability to minimize the perceived ramifications of the strife that is occurring within me. It enables me to separate banal fact from fetid fantasy. A connection with a loved one whose judgments are suspended and only offers love can facilitate a thought process that brings me to a condition of acceptance, gratitude, and serenity. But serenity with a capital hell yeah, true peace and calm and freedom from self-judgment, serenity that is wisdom, serenity that is sourced from within me, this is the most delicious to experience and quite rare. It requires that I accept my circumstances and all the consequences of all of my decisions. For serenity to be present with a capital S, I must let go of all of the negative topics of self-talk and expectation. I must fully realize that my love, my life, my integrity, my sense of self are all good enough. It's all adequate. It may not be what I want, but it's enough. I'm enough. I'm adequate. Connection, empathy, gratitude, acceptance. How do I find serenity? Connection with myself and others. Empathy for myself and from others. Acceptance of circumstances without judgment or blame. A sense of gratitude for the very strife itself. Depression pulls from my soul, my truth. It distorts it and makes it ugly. It presents my truth in a fetid and distorted light. It assaults my consciousness. It dehydrates my hope by flushing truth through my tear ducts. It makes me believe that I'm alone. No hope, no hope, no hope. A war, an eternal internal war. Depression fires barrage after barrage of lies into the framework of my consciousness. I can attempt to refute its assertions. I can attempt to resist its incessant, fetid maliciousness, but it never goes away. So I become hard, coarse, and brittle. Emotional exhaustion takes its toll, and the fabric of my identity begins to unravel. My loved ones become increasingly more victimized by this unseen combatant and blame me. I am not good enough. What had been a gradual, steady, relentless descent into madness is now a free fall. My world collapses around me like a demolished skyscraper. Suffocating clouds of dust blind us as we crawl away from the rubble made of broken hearts and never to be realized dreams. Blame, anger, guilt, hopelessness. Depression is fed by these, but the more it consumes, the more it wants. The more it wants, the more it gets. Connection, empathy, gratitude, and acceptance. When I can, I look inside and I see a tortured and terrified little boy. This, unfortunately, seems possible only when I am most broken. I ask him what he needs. He holds up a mirror and I see my truth. It's not my fault. I'm not crazy, and I am enough. He peeks from behind the mirror, his beautiful little eyes glowing with compassion and pain. Hold me, he says. He crawls into my lap and curls into a ball in my arms. I stroke his hair. I kiss him on the forehead. Everything goes away. We are quiet. We are safe. The war stops for a moment. Blessed quiet. Serenity settles over me as I realize I may never have met this beautiful kid had I not had depression. A few fleeting moments of respite from combat, connection, empathy, gratitude, acceptance. Would that I could always be here with him. Thank you for the question. Now I see him this morning, but damn it, the mirror is foggy.
Just so profoundly awe-inspiring about that. I've never heard it phrased quite that way before. I've never, I know that most people, myself included, when I started, looking, really doing a lot of introspection into why I felt the way that I did and when it started and everything. Of course, it led me back to my childhood when, you know, everything started to begin. But I never thought to look inside myself and see that, you know, that little 7-year-old girl who hurt so bad, and figure
Yeah.
out why, you know, I have often thought, many, many times, if I could somehow tell my younger self something, what would it be? And I've always said that I would tell my younger self that she's stronger than she believes, and no matter what anybody else tells her in this life, that she will always be enough just as she is.
Mm.
It's uh, it's a very, very moving, emotional thing, even to hear what, that someone else has gone through and done that. And it makes me not only want to hug that little boy, but to give you a hug too.
Yeah.
This is probably, you know, one of the one of the more emotional, you know, shows we've had in a while. Every show tends to make me emotional, but um, you know, the similarities between your story and mine are really tugging at some heartstrings tonight.
Well, thank you, and I'm sorry.
No, it's,
and I'm not sorry.
you know, as you know, pain demands to be felt. So it's a good, because I can feel this pain, and I can feel the empathy, you know, toward you and the pain you've gone through, and our listeners and see. And I know that I don't have to take all of that into myself. I can let myself, I can care, but I don't have to carry it with me any farther, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That was a hard lesson for me to learn, to care, and that it's okay that I can care and I can be the empathetic person that I am, but I don't have to take all of that with me, and I don't have to carry it with me.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. And we tend to do that too, you know.
Yes, very.
So we have exceptional strength of character. I found, and it's you know, the word this the you know, my experience with depression taught me a lot about pain, and of course, you know, that enables me to recognize it pretty quickly and clearly in other people. The challenge is, you know, so what happens if I take my shoes off and put my shoes on you and look at you as if you were me? How I approach your crisis and support you is how I want to support myself. And that's what I'm training myself to do. So, you know, I'm putting my shoes on somebody else so that I can identify with them without the baggage of all of the misperceptions and stuff. And it's a mind game. But it's all a mind game, you know. So I don't know. and it's a mind heart game. Huh?
I said depression is the biggest liar I've ever encountered in my life. And
I get.
you know,
Go ahead.
it on the self-doubt and the self-loathing and things like that. And so I've always been able to, look at other people and feel their pain and everything, but I've never and respond to them with kindness and empathy and love and understanding, but I've never been able to do that with myself until recently.
Mm-hmm. Right. The first thing we do with ourselves is judge ourselves. And but when we're met with somebody who they might have an identical problem to one that we have, and we don't judge them first, we love them first, and then we make a determination. But with ourselves, we judge, then we make a determination, and we leave the love part out, And in doing that, we don't have a full picture.
It's such a shame that we are taught not to have that kind of understanding and awareness of our own feelings, like we are of other people's.
Right.
And I don't want that to be misconstrued, because I'm not saying that it is good to have a little bit of selfishness, but not in the way that most people consider selfish.
Right. Yeah.
You have to be able to, to put it, in an easy analogy, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Mm-hmm. Well,
you have to keep your own cup full.
I would even venture to say that self-care is not selfish.
It is not. It is not at all.
Because that gives us the ability to perpetuate our experience and affect our world in a positive way if we're practicing self-care.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
I started. I have something I call my self-care basket.
Awesome.
That it's full of things that help me relax. It's candles that smell really good, and like bubble bath and bath bombs and things like that. So when I feel overwhelmed and stressed, I know that it's time to go have one of these nice relaxing baths and take care of myself for a little bit.
Right.
And that it's okay to do that. And it's a concept I wish more people would do for themselves. And it doesn't have to be like my basket, but just have something that when you feel overwhelmed and run down, have something for yourself, whether it's a notebook and pens that you really love to write something out, or markers and coloring books, or whatever it is that makes you feel happy and makes you feel like you're doing something good for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody have that.
So that I want to make an observation about what you said there. So we oh shoot, I lost my train of thought.
It's okay. It happens to me all the time.
Yeah, it's part and parcel of the whole thing, right? What did you just say? Can you remember?
I was talking about how I feel like everybody should have a little something.
Oh, yes.
For
okay.
Care, a notebook,
and so that right. So that just even the word self-care is so freaking loaded. It's got so much stigma attached to it, and I know part of that, it comes from me internally, but that wasn't sourced from me. That was sourced from society, so we it's really hard to make sense of things when we're getting so many mixed messages, from ourselves, from the society around us, and then we're in different social groups, and they may behave and have different expectations, and we judge ourselves against every single one of those, experiences, and it's really exhausting. So that stigma that society by and large has about mental illness, we hold for ourselves personally also. At least I do in my experience. So I am somehow less than because I'm sad all the time. That doesn't make any sense. I have a couple of pieces that are internal dialogues, and I hope that these demonstrate growth. So the first one was written 3 years ago, and then I'll read one that I wrote last summer, and
Okay.
hopefully folks can see, identify with things that might help them along on their path. So the question on Quora was, how can I find my own self-love and nurture myself when I was not given this love as a child? So I wrote this 3 years ago. I have been on this particular journey for the past 2 years. I was blessed with a wonderful therapist that set me on this path. I began reflecting on my childhood and choosing the first image of my childhood self that came to mind. For me, he was somewhere around 8 years old. I then imagined that little boy sitting next to me on the couch, and I asked him out loud, "What do you need?" At first, this practice was very awkward and strange. I felt like an idiot, but I'm stubborn, so I kept at it. It wasn't long before that little boy would respond to me. Now I can just close my eyes and focus inward, and I ask, "What do you need?" And he answers instantly. It is an inner sense about what his unmet needs are. I describe this as my conscious, or the small, still voice in my head. He answers with a thought that has his precious signature of his age. His signature is a measure of his current vulnerability and ability to recognize my core needs. Vulnerability is his power. He is a child, so his vulnerability is profound. It is how I touch my own soul. I began to write to him. We have conversations in my writing. I'd like to share one of these with you. In the following letter, my inner child was 4. This was written in August of 2017. And here we go. What do you need, Jimmy? I need to be heard and not misinterpreted. But you're only 4. And I have a voice, a 4-year-old voice, but a voice nonetheless. It's as valid as your 45-year-old voice. Why won't you listen? Fear. What are you afraid of? You. Why? Why? I don't know. I don't know. I love you, and I'm desperately afraid of you. What do I do with that? How do I reconcile that? You want me to let you tell me what to do, but you're only 4. How can I trust you? Because, Dad, I love you. Within me is the core truth of your being. We are one. Your truth is my truth. We are one and the same. But you're only 4. Why do you think you look and feel young? Don't you realize that you are still Superman and Wonder Woman? Dad, you have a precious gift. You never, ever totally closed me off. It's why people fall in love with you. They can't help it. You're 45, but you're also 4 and 8 and 14 and 17 and 18. You are what they desperately want to be. Despite what you perceive, you never abandoned us. You've always, to varying degrees, held on to us. And the we that is you, the we that is me, have always guided you. Dad, I know you're confused, you're afraid, you're seemingly powerless to affect your circumstances. I want you to ask me, Dad. I want you to ask me what I need. Ask me again. Okay, what do you need? Nope, ask again. Damn it, I know what you're doing. All right, then. What do I need? Me. Yeah, okay, I get it. I know this, but where's the connection? It's right here, Jim. Okay, I get all that. I know it's much more simple than I'm perceiving it to be, but the simplicity escapes me. Why is it so hard to embrace you? Why must I continue damning you? You're not hearing me. You never damned me. It's why you love the stage. You still make believe with me. You are still Superman. Don't you see? And you're still Wonder Woman. We never stopped playing. We never stopped pretending. It's one of your most profound gifts. It's why you are such a great actor. Within you, actually, within every person, is all people. This strategy of communicating with yourself is much bigger than you are currently perceiving. You know you are not my dad, but you are. You know that you aren't your daughter, but you are. You know that you aren't the president, but you are. You keep talking about how you want to see God in President Trump's face. Look in the freaking mirror. Your challenge is not to see God in Trump's face. Your challenge is to see God in your face, in our face, Dad. Go look, try it. Put down the phone and take me with you to the bathroom. Look in the mirror. Use imagery to lay your memory of my face over what you see. You will see me and your daughter and President Trump. It's all there. Go to the bathroom, look in the mirror, and look for me. 3 breaths. Close your eyes, focus within you, then look in the mirror. Go now, try it. I'll be with you. Okay. I saw profound pain. I saw abject despair. You were hurting that much? It is crippling me. How do I heal this? You are healing it right now and forever. Pain healed is not pain eliminated. It's about accepting and letting it go, Dad. It's about embracing the pain, not forging through it. You know this. Go to your vulnerability. Hear me. I know you're listening, but you're not allowing yourself to hear me. And me is you. Within this confusion that you've embraced is the truth. You're choosing to be confused because you perceive it as confusing. Your turmoil is linked to your attachment to trusting your first impression, which is directly related to how you perceive yourself as having value or not. You are, by the mere fact that you even exist, valuable. You seek acceptance from the people around you, always deeply yearning for the acceptance you bestow upon them. Can't you see? You are them. Your compassion for them has always been compassion for yourself. I implore you to let go of your sense of exceptionalism. You don't have to compete with anyone or prove your worth. You are intrinsically valuable. And Dad, Jim, you already know this. Accept it. I'm tired of crying. Yeah, me too. I've been crying for 45 years. Embrace me. You just said I never let you go. Yes. Just like our real dad never let us go. But we still have deep pain because we yearn for more with him. You yearn for that deep connection that you never had. I want to be embraced, not just accepted. You perceive that you are tolerated. The truth is, and you know this, you are buttressed by an astonishing number of people who love you. Is this love offered to you because you earned it? Are they tolerating you? Of course not. It's because you are you. That's it. It's no more complicated than that. I love you. Yes, you do. Now act like you do. I'll do the rest. I promise. End of letter. Wow, reading through that again moves me deeply. Thank you for posing this question. It was good for me to revisit this. I did edit it for some clarity. I know everyone has their own journey and takes their own steps, but maybe you can find something within what I've shared with you to help you on your own journey. I'm not a professional. I haven't any training in this sort of thing. I just have my personal experience and testimony, and I can assure you it is a profoundly beautiful and empowering process. Write your precious little inner self a letter. You may be surprised at what you discover. Love and blessings to you. Healing is yours to be had. Don't wait. Just go for it.
Amazing. It's it's so I don't even know if I have words, and I've said that a lot tonight. I've, I haven't. I've never sat down and written myself a letter like that. I have. I've sat down and I have put into poem form what I've
Yeah.
what I've felt, and I'm actually looking for it right now because I can't remember all of the if I'm going to read it, I want to make sure that I can read the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm scrolling through my notes on my phone right now, trying to here it is. I wrote this after I had gone through, quite a bit of healing, and I started this whole, journey of my own in 2017, and it took me 2 years to be able to write this, and this was written to the woman who reached out to me when I was at my lowest.
Ah, okay.
But it's, threw me back into my childhood for a moment when I wrote this. So it doesn't really have a title, but here goes. Little girl lost in a sea of unease. The weight of the world brought her to her knees. She fell in a pit of despair black as night. She was tired, worn out, and she just couldn't fight. She thought that it was over, that her life was done. The door had been shut, the final song sung, and as she swallowed her poison and waited for life to end, an angel appeared and said, "I'll be your friend."
Mm-hmm.
So the girl reached out and unloaded her woe, and when she was done, she thought the angel would go. But the angel just told her, "I gave you the truth, and now that you have it, here's further proof. Proof that you matter, are valid, and loved. Proof that you don't have to be constantly shoved." The girl, she was grateful, and she knew, if she listened and learned, that the bad things she felt would soon become turned. So she let go of unearned guilt and worked through the abuses of her past. And after a time, the angel said, "At last, you've become the woman I knew you could be. And you're truly my masterpiece, don't you see?" So the girl cried happy tears and smiled at her friend because she had learned how to love herself in the end. But something else happened she didn't foresee. She had helped the angel to be stronger too, you see. Helped her to spread her wings and to fly. And once again, the girl had to cry. She had been helped by her angel, but she didn't know that she was helping the angel to grow. And so this is the story about how an angel saved me and how I became one in turn, you see.
That is so beautiful. Wow.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I haven't
Wow.
looked at that in a long time. And I haven't read it out loud in I don't know that I've actually ever read it out loud, and hearing it read out loud is very different from reading it on the page.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It sure is. That was amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for sharing everything that you've shared so far.
You're welcome. It's been my pleasure.
As emotional as this has been for me and for C as well, I think this is an experience that I wouldn't have missed for the world.
Thank you. That means a lot.
I know that he really, really, really wanted to be a part of this, but with his little one's birthday,
mm-hmm.
I completely understand. He's out there being the amazing father that he is.
Yep.
Which makes my heart happy.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. He made the right decision.
Yeah, definitely.
Little ones come first.
I know he's going to listen to this later, and I'm going to get some kind of message from him asking if I'm okay. And I'm sure he will too. Is there anything in the chat right now?
Let me check.
Yeah.
No. The last thing was 25 minutes ago.
Okay. So yeah, I think you have our listeners as riveted as we are.
Okay. Would you like me to read the second letter?
Yes, please.
Sure.
You're comfortable.
Go ahead.
Please do.
Yeah.
I would love to hear it.
Okay. This is called Waiting for Worthiness. Love thyself, self. What? You heard me. Okay, I'll bite. What are you talking about? My purpose, the whole why I'm here thing. Okay, go on. If I can love myself, then I'll be free. You are free. Look where you live. No, I'm bound quite tightly, bound by fear. It informs every decision I ever make, and not in a positive or constructive way. So what are you afraid of? There's nothing to be afraid of. You know that. Do I? Nothing to be afraid of, huh? Yeah, right. Good question anyway. For the longest time, I didn't know what I was afraid of. Fear seemed to be an ever-present stowaway that I just couldn't get rid of. A general awareness of an ever-present and frequently powerful influence. But now I do know what I'm afraid of. Well, actually, I really did know back then, but was willfully denying it. I don't know, maybe I wasn't ready, I guess, scared. It's so complicated, seemingly. Anyway, where was I? You were going to continue telling me why you're a coward. A coward? What the heck? No, not a coward. The fear represents, the truth is, I'm still a little boy. What? What the hell are you talking about? I kind of never grew up. I mean, I've got a body and an intellect that's nearly 50, yet my consciousness, my me, it's still innocent and tender and naive. Part of me got stuck in time. I look in the mirror, it's someone else's face, some old guy. And this stuck me is repelled by a lot of what I've become. Me has passed judgment, and I don't pass. This is getting wonky. Quiet, damn it. This me is terribly burdened and afraid. It wants to be free of the shackles of adulthood and pretend that awful shit isn't literally happening everywhere. It just wants to explore and play and have fun and marvel at the beauty and mystery of the world and flip over rocks to study bugs and pretend to be a superhero. It wants to find stick guns and pow, pow, pow away to glory. It wants to be the damsel in distress that frees herself and slays the freaking dragon. It wants to cuddle and daydream. It wants to laugh and roll down a grassy hill. It wants to draw and paint and sculpt and sing and dance. And it wants to please mom and dad. Still, It still wants to please mom and dad, even after all these years. And it wants it to be okay, to be sad that it's all over. There is a powerful sense of irretrievable loss, a sense that it's too late. The time was squandered and my one chance is gone, just gone. And it's fucking pissed about the whole sour fucking deal. Just fucking pissed. Touching, sweet, like little girls with kittens. What is this bullshit? This is an old story, a tired one. It's all been true since I was 10 to varying degrees. The week of my 10th birthday, I began truly cultivating hopelessness. I mean, my depression was there from years before. You remember. Of course you remember. Of course I remember. So the earliest memory of my depression is from when I was around 4. It then influenced everything I experienced from at least that point onward. At 10, I willfully left my childhood behind. I gave up. I felt alone. In a very real sense, emotionally abandoned from long before. I had little guidance, and I had crossed from single digits to double, and there was no going back, no redo. In my 10-year-old brain, this was bigger than the discovery of water. It was already too late for me. It was already too late. It's getting thick in here, real thick, real quick. Quiet. However, I'm a fighter with a strong instinct for self-preservation. A great inner battle began and has been raging with little reprieve and to varying degrees of intensity until today. This battle has been fought by me, against me, within me for all of this time. And damn it, I'm getting really tired. You don't know what you're talking about. You're so completely full of shit. Coward. Coward. Yeah, sometimes the fear is that little kid's response to shame. Here we go again. Shame. Weaponized, it is incredibly destructive. It is the weapon that I choose to continuously assault myself with. I have an adversary, and my adversary is cunning, ruthless, and deceitful. My adversary is a shifty thief in the darkness and a champion of subterfuge in the light. My adversary craftily weaves webs of shame into the fabric of my perception of reality, distorting and obscuring what's true, making the irrational appear rational, masquerading light as shadow, shadow as light. It taunts and tortures and never stops. My adversary is paradoxically shameless in its pursuits. My adversary is me. Nonsense, 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 nonsense. Bizarre nonsense. Is it though? Yeah, thought so. Anyway, I truly am my own worst enemy. Shame has dictated that it be so. I see that there is nothing I can do, be, or say that makes me worthy. Shame is an integral part of the framework of my identity. There is no facet of my character that has not been shaped in some way by shame. Shame was learned as I was constructing what would ultimately be my adult brain, woven during my formative years. Shame, it's a part of me. That's terrible and useless, and you should kick someone's ass about it, coward, idiot. Your dad should have set your ass straight. Very insightful and clever. Stop it, please. My parents, they didn't do this to me, did they? Yep, they sure did, moron. You know it's all their fault. You know it. You'll never get out from under dad's eye. He is always watching you, and you will never, ever be enough. Ever. You're wrong, damn it. They just let it happen. It wasn't intentional. They were busy chasing their white picket fence, doing what they were supposed to do. They just forgot to raise us, me and my little sister. I have to tell myself that they didn't know any better. The alternative is too painful to contemplate. They did know better. You weren't good enough. You are fucking wrong. They were just working to make our lives better as they saw it. And I guess me is really, really pissed about that. Babysitters and daycares, and then 1970s and 1980s daytime television raised me. I was raised by what I identified with on TV. I was mad at my parents for it then, and still I am mad today. So, for nearly 5 decades, I've been pissed at my parents for blowing it for me, which only perpetuates my being stuck in this position. But, correction, actually, the first 10 years I wasn't mad, was I? No, not mad. I was confused and sad and scared, alone, and disappointed that I didn't make the cut. And I was waiting for worthiness, like it would just come to me someday. I would just wake up shameless, free, a man, like magic. I've been waiting and pissed about it ever since. Wait, what makes you worthy, huh? What? There is something, there's gotta be, I know it. You just haven't found it yet. There's tons of more things to try. What about firefighting? You're totally awesome with chainsaws. That's manly. Or maybe you could do pornos, huh? You're totally manly. You're just unhappy, ungrateful, and a coward. Who says you have to be happy? You're weak. I believe in you. I found nothing makes me worthy. Pornos? Yeah, pornos. Why not? I mean, they are super manly, right? Why won't anything make you worthy, huh? I know why, because you're not. Worth isn't even real, damn it. Ugh, just stop. Dude, you're just unlucky. That's all. Pornos. Maybe no, whatever. Stop, damn it. Just stop. Worthiness. It's not real. It's just not real. It's an imaginary construct humans came up with to try and make sense of their conflicting intellects and emotions. And for whatever reason, I'm sure it's tied to shame somehow, we will fight tooth and nail to not be proven wrong. I share that stubborn trait, and I think I know all this. However, I just can't seem to let shame go. It's learned. Can I unlearn it? Even though it's a part of me? Haven't yet. Working on it. You know that, though. I don't think it'll ever go away. You're afraid you're not worthy? Maybe you're just weak. Maybe not smart enough. Stupid. Weak, huh? Stupid? No, quite clever, actually. What the fuck? Whatever. To confirm your statement, yes, I'm afraid I'm not worthy, but it's more than that. I'm afraid I'm right that I'm not worthy. Huh? Sounds crazy. Took you long enough. What? Throwing in that word. Nice. Fuck off. Back to what I was saying. I'm afraid I'm correct in my assessment that I'm not worthy. If I'm correct, then I must stubbornly fight to prove so. It's the shame web. It ties everything together in such a way that I must forever stand accused before myself and serve as my own prosecution and defense. It is an entirely untenable situation, and as I stated earlier, I am getting tired. So you're going to start thinking about the ultimate solution again then? Huh? Maybe it'll work this time. Fourth strike, I bet you're out of here. Seems kind of like mercy to me for everyone, right? Just saying, you'll stop hurting. Wow, pulling out all the stops, huh? You piece of, damn it, knock it off. I'm fucking telling you, threats. Ooh, you're getting mad? Poor thing. Truth hurts, don't it? Go on, hit me. I'll stop hurting if you hit me. I promise. One good one right in the jaw. Bam, stars, blessed relief. At least while you're cradling your pounding head. Fool, coward, crazy. Go on, do it, crazy, do it, crazy, do it, do it. Not this time. Not this time. Actually, for perhaps the first time ever, I'm kind of glad to be having this discussion. Yes. Truth does sometimes hurt, indeed. But I'm telling you, trying to tell you, I figured it out. Unlikely. What you've presented to me throughout the years has mostly been carefully manipulated versions of what had been true, always leaving enough of what is real to make me question my own questions and believe in the fanciful reality that I perceive, sowing tiny, sometimes huge seeds of doubt, ceaselessly. Sometimes even allowing the whole truth to shine, if it would serve your purpose. I figured out your game. Oh, figured out my game, have you? My purpose? Really? Look at you. You're fucking nuts. Are you listening to yourself? I mean, come on, man. What the fuck? Stop being dramatic. It's not going to work this time. Dramatic? You are the queen of fucking drama queens. You don't even know what you're talking about. Loser, 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 loser. It stings. Each one. Every single time. It stings. Stings? Who the fuck cares? You do, clearly. Well, and what if I do? What the fuck? It was supposed to sting, you dumb fuck, loser. Why? Fuck. Why fucking what? Why would you want to hurt me? I because you deserve it. Who cares? You are fighting a battle that you will always eventually lose. It will never end. I will never ever stop. I will spin and spin and spin in a carefully choreographed dance, and you will never always see me coming. I will never ever stop. Ever. I know. What? You know? What's that supposed to mean? I know I can't beat you. You'll never ever stop. So you'll not win. Wait, what? Why? There is no winning. And you'd pay the ultimate price trying to get there. And you're too stubborn to allow that to happen again. Plus, you've seen a glimpse of the truth. So we are, perhaps, not stuck in a perpetual battle after all. Wrong. I'd let it all go in a heartbeat. History proves I'm right. And this fight is all you know. That was then. It's different now. You don't have the same influence you once had. You've seen the truth, and it will not be denied. After all this work over the past 5 years, I've finally managed to show it to you. You are confused and trying to protect yourself. That's all. You're a little kid in a grown-up world with little kid tools, trying to love yourself, but you just don't know how to. Oh, yeah? Well, maybe you're delusional again, or still, how do you even know what's real, what's true? Honestly, I really don't. But as I said, I'm getting really tired. I'm tired of being mad, tired of feeling powerless, tired of being my own victim, lashing and lashing and lashing myself. Really, what I'm most exhausted with is trying to be who you think you want me to be, because I'm not him. I'm just not him. Well then, who the fuck are you, huh? Who? Who the fuck do you think you are? Dude, kiddo, I'm you, and I'm revealing to you a beautiful mirror.
Yeah. I felt a lot of that.
Okay?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Are we there?
I've been in that spot. I've been in that place where I'm arguing with myself because there's so much that I was angry about, but I didn't know how to express it. And the point you make about being, I think when you have that kind of trauma, you're always a little bit stunted age wise, not physically but mentally. You're always in that place. I mean, I am forever that 7-year-old kid.
Yep.
Who didn't know how to deal with the pain that she was experiencing, and didn't have adults around that would even acknowledge that I had any pain, because someone else had it worse.
Yeah.
Which is one of the things that I really, really, really despise when people start to talk about their mental health and the trauma that they've gone through and everything. No matter what it is, somewhere out there's the one upper that person that's always, oh well, You know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's been worse for me. It's been worse for me, but
Uh-huh.
everybody's pain is valid. It doesn't matter if someone has experienced more pain or less pain than another person. It's all real. It's all hurtful. It's all valid
Mm-hmm.
to our life experience.
Absolutely.
You know, I was always called hysterical and overdramatic because I cried easily, because I hurt easily. And I never realized how much that affected the way that I viewed myself, because after a while I would be calling myself all of these hateful names
Mm-hmm.
because it's everything I'd ever heard in my life. And it's just, I know I'm not the only person to have done that. I know I'm not the only person to have internalized all of that, you know, hurt and pain that they've felt, and turn it on themselves and twist it even deeper.
Mm-hmm.
And just, it's logically, I know that, you know, I'm not the only person that has done that, but hearing someone else speak about how they've done that to themselves, how they've dealt with their, you know, their pain and trauma is, I've always known I wasn't alone, but it's I don't know, it's a cathartic experience to find, you know, kindred people that understand.
Yeah, that's for sure. It sure is. Um, yeah, yeah. Should I continue?
Yeah, do you have
Sure.
more?
Oh yeah.
Oh yes, then by all.
Loads. All right. This is a beautiful mirror. So this was following an experience I had this summer where a friend of mine came and visited, and she did some mirroring work with me. Um, it was, well, I'll just read it. All right. A beautiful mirror. I came home with a bug. It affected my entire household. Then I set out to infect my entire community, nay, the world. I am a super spreader event. I worked for 44 years to develop this pathogen. It was a long, hard haul. There were multitudes of failed experiments. A few core team members stuck it out, but many came and went. They all worked with dedication to unearth the secrets of this mysterious bug. For 4 decades, I collected and ran through the data, reformulated old perceptions regarding my previous findings and new findings, and with my team, we eventually deduced protocols and a methodology that would free this tiny critter from its self-imposed isolation. The lab is my heart, the pathogen is love, and oh crap, it's free. Turns out it's not tiny at all, far from it. It's so huge, it's incalculable. Dare I say, infinite. Look out, don a mask, I am sending it your way. I and a member of my team sat in the woods on a blistering hot day. The white sand on the beach at the end of the dark and densely grown forest was scorching. Without shoes, we only had seconds before the sand would burn our feet. We sat in a small clearing in flimsy, collapsible camping chairs facing each other. Sweat ran freely over our lightly clad bodies. The thick canopy provided mottles in ever-dancing shade across our forms. The woods were quiet, a muffled bird cry, a distant limb falling to the ground. The quiet rustle of leaves overhead being moved by undulating heat waves. An occasional splash from the river that was filled with basking and frolicking turtles. Cicadas in the nearby desert singing their shrill songs, celebrating the white-hot heat. The air was filled with a sense of earth, wet clay, decomposing forest debris, and our own petty perfumes. She looked deep into my eyes. She reached within me through her gaze, and she gifted to me a beautiful mirror. I saw a precious, innocent little boy. He was ravaged by pain and grief. He held in his tiny eyes all of the hopelessness one could ever imagine. He was condemned to a lifetime of tragic pain and suffering, pure agony, from one simple mistake. He had decided he was broken long, long ago. Trusting and loving, he was the center of the universe. He only knew joy and an inexhaustible and ferociously hungry curiosity. Despite their own perceived shortcomings, his parents had done well. He was secure and only understood trust and happiness. A single misguided decision changed it all in a dry ditch on a cool spring morning in Texas. The neighbor's boy was perhaps 12. I remember loving to visit him and his family in their simple but solid adobe home. There was always bustling activity and often the dizzyingly delicious smell of beans and corn and flour tortillas cooking. I don't remember it being a problem that we spoke different languages. This particular morning, the little boy was exploring the great outdoors near his home. There were copses of cottonwood trees popping up between fields of newly sprouting crops. Small and large houses punctuated long driveways here and there amongst the fields. Our own little rental home stood near the main road, with the neighbor's old adobe not far behind. There was a ditch that fed the field nearest our home, and I was in the ditch and soaking up everything I could perceive. It had been running recently, so the surface had yet to start cracking, but it was not muddy. Buds and other crawling things, flowers and birds. Then the neighbor's boy appeared. Fog, lips, fog, genitals, fog, a taste, fear, 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 alone. This isn't okay. What is happening? Alone. I said no. Didn't I? Didn't I say no? Perception is a function of experience. Everything shattered. Fog, alone, fog, shame, fog, alone, just alone, just shame. In his desperation to make sense of what had occurred, being the center of the universe, I decided I deserved it, that I could never measure up to the wonder of the world that had been stolen from me. I decided I was broken, not because of what had occurred. I deduced that the event occurred precisely because I was broken. I deserved it. I deserved to have my heart ravaged and left to rot. I was 4 years old. Memory repression and recovery is a touchy subject. I cannot fully trust the specific accuracy of my memories as I've had far too much time to ruminate over it all. What I can trust is that something terrible happened in that ditch, and I blamed me. She continued looking deeply into my eyes. The stillness of the woods was compounded by the intensely painful dis-ease I was reflecting. Wispy images appeared in my mind. Fog or smoke, billows and undulates, allowing glimpses of terror to be revealed in no particular order. There is no more denying. There is no more running. There is no more hiding. I faced the pain, gnashing my teeth, grinding and grinding my body as tense as a violin string. I struggled, confusion and smoky images buffeting my mind and ravaging my heart. I fought, and I fought like I'd never fought before. My dedicated teammate suggested that I accept that the terrible incident had occurred. How could I deny it any longer? Every moment of my life had been a directive to arrive at this place and this time to slay this fucking dragon. I have never been more ready for the last battle. I accepted that it had happened. Boom. Oh my God, the pain. It washed over me. It consumed me. The woods were pulsating with our work. Deep inside, I screamed. The piercing cry of a destitute and injured child, the heart-wrenching cry of hopelessness, rage, and pure crystalline pain, the haunting cry of endless suffering. It slashed and ravaged my perceptions. It cut away at my conceived notions. It tore apart everything I thought I knew. Stillness. I had been wrong. I had been wrong all along. Now the real work. She did not suggest that I forgive my assailant. What? This flies in the face of what I know. She suggested that I forgive myself for ever believing that I was broken. Look into my eyes, Jim. Imagine your innocent self with a smile. Remember a time of happiness. You just need an image. A memory of a photo will do. A memory before your assault. A photo, you say? I can do that. Proceed. Got it? Good. Now, repeat after me. No, over here. You need to look in my eyes. Okay. Now, repeat after me. I forgive you for ever believing you are broken. Wait, what? Wait. Confusion, fog, pain, senseless, fleeting images, every muscle tense, teeth grinding and grinding and grinding. Look away. Words, confusion. She's saying something. Look in her eyes. I can't. Look in her eyes. I can't do it. No. It's okay, Jim. Look into her eyes. Repeat after me. I forgive you forever. No. My voice is frozen. Words. She's still talking. Look in her eyes. No. And I did. I stood in the face of my deepest terror and gently, compassionately loved it. I forgive you for ever believing you are broken. There was never a dragon. Exhaustion washed over me as the energy of 4 decades of shame and rage began evaporating. The little boy, so alone in that ditch so long ago, was free once again to marvel at the world, and he knows that I am a part of said wondrous world. For the first time since I was 4, I marveled at me. Compassion and gratitude consumed me. It was pure bliss. No longer did I perceive my assailant as a monster. What he did was monstrous. What he was just another victim. 44 years of rage aimed at me, him, my dad, my mom, a god. It began to just evaporate. Freedom. This is freedom. And I wept and wept. Pain was interwoven with gratitude. Light bathed my soul. I was clean. After all these years, I was clean. Understanding settled in, gently, quietly, a divine understanding. There is nothing to fear. I returned home from that fateful camping trip to witness miracle after miracle. My teenage daughter and I found deeper untangling and understanding of our shared experience. My adult son and I have revisited the past and begun a beautiful path of healing around the death of his mother and my sometimes not so great parenting. We've never been closer. My lovely roommate and I have connected around our shared pain, and she has begun, with a fervor, her own powerful healing journey. I reached out to my father, whom I had forsaken 2 years ago, and apologized for setting standards for him that he could never meet. My mother, too. We are on a new and beautiful healing journey. I reached out to strangers on the internet that were expressing pain, and they received my comfort warmly. It's only been 2 weeks since that day in the woods. 2 weeks, and I've only been home for 1 week. I have so much work to do. More family, friends, strangers. This is beauty incarnate, freedom, peace. I am a super spreader event. I'm going to infect every single person I can. And guess what? I know of a secret you may not know. I love you, and you do too. Take a breath and let that sink in. You love you too.
No, I don't know that that's something that's ever talked about a whole lot. Forgiving yourself for
for believing the lies, for believing that you're somehow not worth anything. And that's just, it's such an amazing thing to sit down and to hear that it is hard work, but it can be done, that you can do these, you can look inside yourself and you can find yourself again.
Yeah, absolutely. Give me just a second here to gather myself, and then there's a lot of stuff I can still share. There's a particularly powerful piece that I would like to share with everybody. That was my most recent writing. It's actually a work in progress, but it's complete enough to share.
I'd love to hear it. I think our listeners would too.
All right. This one's raw. I mean, they've all been raw, but this one is particularly raw.
Well, we have a comment in the chat right now from Devern. Best show of the entire series.
Whoa. Wow.
This has been very raw, as you have said, but very powerful and
extremely powerful.
As far as I've come on my own journey, I've heard things that I've needed to hear. Tonight, I knew I would cry. I didn't know I would spend the entire episode fighting back tears.
Well,
okay. And they're not bad tears.
Mm.
You know, they're tears of I think partly happy tears for, you know, the beautiful moments of recognition that you shared, and tears of validation knowing that, you know, I see so many parallels between your story and mine.
I think that's probably true for a lot of us.
I think so. We all have, you know, we all have more in common than we want to believe.
There's a human thread, isn't there?
There is, because at the end of the day, you know, no matter who we are, no matter what we do in this life, the one thing that will always connect us is that we are all human beings, and we are all worthy of, you know, love and acceptance and validation, no matter what.
Yeah, period. Yeah, period, stop. I mean, that's, you know, there are a few absolutes, and that's one of them.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, I cut you off. You were going to say something. I've got to work on listening, but that's okay. I've been really good about not interrupting folks tonight, but usually I'm terrible because I want to throw my ideas in before I finish hearing the other person's idea. That happens a lot. But I'm learning. It's a work in progress.
We're all a work in progress, so
yeah,
I get it.
Which, you know, if it wasn't, well, here's one thing I can say. Having lived with depression all these years, I have very rarely ever been bored. I'm not sure what that feels like. I'm always engaged in something, emotional or otherwise. So this piece is, I suspect this is going to be the most difficult one for me to read because it's the most revealing one. Anyway, I will suspend my own judgment and go. This piece is titled Shadow in the Raw. Quote, do what you will, harm none, end quote. My granddad. Freedom. Freedom to be me. I see holes in my form. Freedom leaks from these. I am not whole. I cannot do what I will. By this, I harm me. By this, I am not free. Are they holes? No, they are repressed, suppressed shadow, my other half. I have long considered my shadow as being something that needed to be battled against, something to be reviled and disempowered. However, I cannot hate it, and I cannot truly repress it. I have always been a liar, a thief, a manipulator, greedy, covetous, entirely human, and filled with suppressed rage. These aspects of myself come up here and there. Time has lessened their pool some. I might consider that progress, but perhaps not. Why is their pool lessened? Time has allowed me to learn to function while being incomplete. It's sad. It's not progress. What if my shadow, rather than being overcome, can be tempered or honed? How do I indulge shadow without becoming a monster? I have indulged my shadow by doing things that are bad. When the acts are victimless, there is no shame, only a giddy, childlike sense of having gotten away with something. It's invigorating and feels like spice, fun. Then there are those acts that have victims. As I stated earlier, I'm a thief. As I've matured, the compulsion to steal has become easier to resist. I'm ashamed to say that it hasn't disappeared completely, although now it's very rarely acted upon, but the shame, even from just the compulsion, that is a key. Shame. Shame has the incredible ability to draw all of my attention and energy to it, while at the same time exhausting me and nearly completely disempowering my entire being. It is intricately entangled with my shadow and prevents me from being the person I truly am. It prevents me from realizing the full potential of my ability to create beautiful and powerful things. Shame is the root of my mental illness. When I consciously engage with the victimless crime, there's a playfulness and freedom, personal power. Like, I don't have to follow the rules, maybe. It's definitely attached to my desire to not conform, and that's it. The shadow is where my power of resistance is. I don't want to be humdrum and resigned to my fucking existence. I want to live on the edge and passionately interact with my experience. Society wants me to pick a slot and fit in, but all I see are tabs. Of course, I'm going to resist conforming. What if shadow had a conscious hand in guiding my creativity rather than only being utilized to be subversive or sneaky? What if I approached my shadow from a loving, cultivating perspective rather than seeing it as representative of an evil to be put in a place of belittling disempowerment? It resists this misguided condemnation. I resist it. It isn't evil. It is correct to resist. I am not evil. Of course, I resist. This will require me to go deep. I know that at my core, I absolutely do not loathe my shadow. It is my current conscious and subconscious understanding and perception that is incomplete and skewed. Here, there is a disconnect. I'm very curious and excited, plus a little nervous, about the knowledge I'll glean from this new thought spirit exploration. It feels like a large meadow in front of me, flowers and grasses, birds and bugs fluttering about. There are large gray and brown stones here and there amongst the flourishing flowers and vegetation. There are amazing creepy crawlies residing under these stones. I can carefully roll the stones aside to investigate the life underneath. Some of these denizens are beautiful, some more mundane, some are downright terrifying. They all play a role, some great and some small, in the sustained functioning of the meadow in which they reside. These shadow bugs are essential for the system to function. They forage and hunt and recycle energy, and each is a tiny spark of life representative of its micro and macro ecosystems. They work behind the scenes, so to speak, just like shadow. Rage. It is the most terrifying aspect of myself that I've encountered. It is the most powerfully destructive force that I can utilize, although it's never utilized. It utilizes me. Once it's driving, I'm powerless to stop it. Honestly, my vast lack of confidence is probably the reason I haven't actually choked a person to death. Perhaps. I have harmed myself, though, and I have killed animals in rage. This is a thing for which I carry a great deal of shame. It breaks my heart. It is imperative that I unpack this to free my full creative spirit. When the rage is driving, it's primal. The first time I remember succumbing to it and harming an animal was when I was 10 years old. I beat a cat with a stick I beat a cat with a stick that had bitten me when I tried to rescue it from a tree. When that happened, I split. The one who did the beating wasn't me. I literally, consciously created an other that was guilty of my cruelty. I literally, vocally belittled and condemned an other Jimmy. No wonder that name makes my skin crawl. My parents noted my short temper when I'd get frustrated with toys. They informed me that you need to learn to control your temper. That was it. No guidance. Well, they didn't know. It further entrenched me in a place of powerlessness, as I had no idea how to control my temper. Rage. Thought is reduced to guiding all energy to the target. The emotions are a swirling typhoon of a childlike primal pain and sadness that expresses itself in physical violence. My strength increases, critical thought is incapacitated. Only the pain and the power exists. It comes on fast, seemingly from nowhere. Just as quickly as it arrives, it dissipates. Minutes or seconds have passed. There's a dead animal, or more frequently, an injury I've inflicted on myself. Then, a veritable tsunami of shame. It rolls in with a bone-chilling coldness, a hardness, suffocating. It's a judge, and it always finds me guilty. It is punitive. It breaks my heart. It rends my soul. It says, see, you are evil. You're a worthless piece of shit. So the sadness within the primal rage is a key. It is so deep. It is so big. It rides the coattails of my rage and screams and rails at the injustice of what? Why am I so fucking sad, so deep, so big? Is it my apparent separation from a creator, from myself? Or is it merely that as a young child, I formulated expectations about the world that were misguided and could never, ever be met? Is it that these misperceptions about my reality were then used by me as a foundational tool to construct my blooming character and identity? A character and identity woven together based on half-truths, misconceptions, and outright lies. I think the latter is likely the larger proportion of all of the possibilities I've explored here and in other work. Maybe it's all true, and I will learn more about each of these facets of my experience in due time. And it's certainly likely that some of these things I'm exploring will be found to have had a greater overall impact than other facets. What's important is what's before me right now. Shadow. I am not afraid. I am, however, cautious. Or is that not true? Am I afraid? Fuck yes, I'm afraid. Vulnerability scares me, and it is my greatest strength. This writing is vulnerable. This writing is power, my power. Sexual arousal and emotional intimacy. As a result of my misguided perceptions as a child, I screwed up my love map. To my horror, when I was a teen, I found that anytime I expressed affection for a pet, I would get an erection. I filed this away, out of mind, out of sight. Of course, I couldn't completely ignore it, but it was nevertheless judged, sidelined, even as it reoccurred. Years went by, and I became a father. Once again, to my horror, I found I would get an erection when cuddling with my new child. Deep, dark, awful filth. That's what I felt like. And imprinted on me further evidence that I'm a monster. It affected how I raised my children. I needed to have physically touched them more. They needed that. I needed that. I was too afraid of me. I get it now. I understand now why that happens. But then, only deep, dark filth. I was deep, dark filth. Then there was a particularly nasty 24-month custody battle over my third child. A couple of months into the war, I found myself being accused of sexually abusing her. Rage. Thinking back, the level of self-control and composure I maintained was commendable. I, stone-faced, sat through court proceedings that publicly dissected our intimate personal habits and abandoned an incomplete version of our characters bleeding out in the desert sun. Rage. For 2 years, my blood was replaced with boiling blood-red rage. Fortunately, it never took the driver's seat during that time. That would come later. We eventually made peace, my ex and I. It was solid, real. It was for our daughter, but also ourselves. My soul was decaying. It was peace or death. However, my rage was so great that I kept a secret from our peace accord. I consciously resolved that I would never forgive her for what she did to me. I consciously resolved to never, ever completely let go of my rage. The thing is, I did it to me. She was never truly the focus of my ire. I was. The accusation made against me was found unsubstantiated by the court, but to me, operating in a slippery, slimy state of cognitive dissonance, I was filth and had only narrowly avoided being exposed. Fucking ouch. I was actively looking for evidence to support my notions, and of course, finding it. I ignored evidence that loudly declared anything to the contrary. For instance, you'd think that if I were a pedophile, I would have taken advantage of my children when they were the most vulnerable, like when I changed a diaper, for instance. The erection only occurred when I was expressing love, a faulty love map, nothing more. I've never sexually assaulted anyone or anything, never will. Yet, I'm still filth? I am not filth. I'm just fucking human. Shadow. What exactly are you? I have notions and strongly suspect that they are incomplete at best. It's very difficult for me to put into words what I think shadow is. As a matter of fact, I can't make much sense of the avalanche of thoughts that come when I consider the question. I think I will most benefit now with further reading on this subject. I stopped reading about it to explore this stuff without having been influenced by another's ideas. Now it's time to explore the available wisdom offered by others. What I do know is that I have much to learn, and what I have learned is the perfect foundation for whatever it is that comes next. Honestly, I'm not sure I can even stop this process now. It's taken on something like a life of its own. It feels like blooming freedom, and I'm awash in gratitude. I found it. Shadow isn't just evil stuff, it's also neutral and good stuff. Shadow is anything within me that I perceive needs to be made inaccessible. Sometimes this is a functional and critically important thing, suppressing greed, for instance. However, genetic characteristics of my personality were also suppressed. Like, I'm an artist. I didn't let myself be one because it didn't fit my perception of who I thought I was supposed to be. I locked away a vast majority of my creative power. I tried to force myself to fit into those silly tabs society's prepared for me for 40 years or something. This explains why my recovery took so long once I initiated the inner child work. I kept going back to the tabs. I would make progress, feel relief, feel empowered, then stop working. I was too afraid to go deep. I thought recovery meant being normal like everyone else. What I didn't get was that my normal is nothing like what I perceived normal to be. So it took lots of time. There is value in this, though. As a dear friend once told me, go slowly into the light. He was right. This work is critically important, and each step gets me further to my goal, however slight the steps may seem. Rushing into the light haphazardly could be very costly. The light can be hot. Thankfully, my sanity settles in a drop at a time. Occasionally, major breakthroughs happen, leaving me physically, emotionally, and spiritually exhausted, burned out. It takes a considerable amount of energy to rewire one's own brain. So yeah, slow is good. There's also something to be said for savoring these moments of growth. I mean, I savored pain for so long. Change is nice. Compassion for myself. It all started there. My life's purpose is to love me. I like that. That sounds totally doable, way more than make $1 million or save the world. So what's the barrier currently preventing me from going even deeper? Fear. Fear of what? Fear of the unknown. Unknown with a capital U. Why with a capital U? Because this perhaps is where God is most accessible, unknown. We cannot truly know a God without knowing ourselves. When I go deep and find that beautiful mirror in my soul, I see the reflection of my childhood self, a sweet, trusting, kind little boy. He's overflowing with curiosity, wonder, and giddy anticipation. I see within his innocent little eyes great expectations of exploration and discovery. As I gaze astonished into his countenance, I understand how it is that his joy withered and his fear grew. It is absolutely tragic. And it's also okay. That is a part, maybe the most important part, of that exciting exploration he never stopped anticipating. This is also where the sadness is. Jimmy knows that there's a better way, but he's a little kid with little kid tools. It's extremely frustrating for him trying to get my attention. Jimmy is in my subconscious. With his fragile innocence and only having access to my subconscious, he finds himself frustrated, disconnected, vulnerable, and terrified. His sadness is an ocean. He knows there's a better way. He's not alone. There are billions of us in the same predicament. He resides in that beautiful mirror with the rest of us. We're all there. And that's where God is carrying us down the beach. All we've got to do is let God do it. The thing is, we can't truly appreciate where we are until we experience what it's like to be where we aren't, separated from ourselves and a creator. It's a paradox, and I think it's tragically beautiful. So where does this lead me? Well, several steps forward, really. Time for savoring now.
I will say I did relate a lot to particularly the emotions taking over and not really having any control over them, letting them really run your life. The shame as well. It's an experience like no other. And you really have to, at least for me, have to tell myself, just stop. Because the things that bring me shame, just things in the past, it doesn't seem to ever want to go away.
No, it doesn't.
It just kind of remains, and we have to live with that, try to control it in a way. For me, I would write down quote unquote confessions to make the shame go away. And that's what I still do to this day.
Yeah, we each come up with our own unique processes to manage these things, and it's, it's the human experience, but it's individually experienced, right? So, yeah.
I really understood feeling like a monster as well. I was on some medication, my first antidepressant, and it made me genuinely want to kill things. My parents, my Zen rabbit, my nieces. And I remember feeling total shame and feeling terribly awful. And it reinforced the idea that I wasn't supposed to be alive, that I was evil. So I really understand, even if it's in a bit of a different way.
So many things have hit, I think, all of us really hard. It's it's been this emotional roller coaster the whole night, and it's a ride that I'm glad that we've experienced. It's so hard to admit sometimes when you feel weak and wrong.
Yeah.
It's so hard to be vulnerable to someone else, and hopefully this episode especially, but with the entire podcast in general, hopefully the people that are out there listening will begin to realize that the things that they feel, they're
not alone.
They're not alone. The things that they feel are valid, no matter what they tell themselves, no matter what others around tell them.
They're not making it up.
Exactly.
God, I hate that phrase.
I've been told, as I stated before, many times, that my emotional responses to things are weakness, and this isn't weakness. It's actually one of my greatest strengths, and it took me 37 years to come to that realization.
Mm-hmm.
I will never again in my life look down on myself for feeling as deeply as I do. I wouldn't be me if I didn't.
Right.
I think while we have a short pause, we should check out the chat really quick and see if there's really nothing going on in there. Are you there, guys? Is there anyone out there?
I think they're just very I don't know the right word.
I think this entire show has been riveting. It's it's one of those shows that it's so raw, it's so emotional. I think it resonates with so many people in so many different ways. I knew it would.
I want to touch people.
I think you have absolutely, well, I know you have absolutely done that tonight, because now there are aspects of my life that will never be the same, having met you, having you speak.
Ditto.
And that is and that is a good thing, because there are some realizations that came to me tonight that I'm just really floored by, but in the best way possible.
Thank you. there's more stuff, and it's all, I mean, as equally as I kind of get the sense that maybe, I don't know, is that enough?
Read as
Is
many as you want. I will gladly listen. They are amazing. Some of them resonate deeply with me. I will gladly listen.
I was like, same here. We have it is about 10:20 right now, so we have about 40 more minutes to go.
Yeah.
And you know, until we hit that hard limit for this show, for this episode. Okay. So if you have more you'd like to share, by all means, please go on.
All right, I will do that. This is going back again to 2017, and once again, it was a question on Quora. And this one was really interesting for me, and I think this is the one I revisited twice. Oops, what's going on here? Oh, there we go. The person asked, why do I feel comfortable being depressed? Which blew my mind. Depression is defined as feelings of severe despondency and dejection. Comfort, in this context, is defined as the easing or alleviation of a person's feelings of grief or distress. As I sit here languishing in utter despair, clawing at my consciousness, every thought ripping my heart asunder, and immobilized in fear and self-condemnation, your question brings me pause. Is it comfort or a sense of familiarity? Are you chronically depressed? Is depression an integral part of your identity? Is it something that, if gone, would leave you feeling somehow incomplete or otherwise compromised? Depression is not comforting. It's fucking torture. From the core of my identity, it manipulates all of my perceptions and distorts them. Here is where my alternative facts are contrived and thrust into the framework of my consciousness. Knowledge and facts can serve as hindrances to these self-inflicted mindfucks, but knowledge and facts are typically overcome by this near constant barrage of despair-loaded cluster bombs. I don't perceive how comfort could be gained from an emotional war occurring in the core of my being. However, my perception is not yours. Seek professional counseling if your experience has you concerned. Otherwise, continue seeking understanding of your experience and arm yourself with the facts. All the best to you. So then I had to come back to it. So I considered it, I pondered it, and then I came back to the answer. Edit. I have not been able to stop thinking about this question. I appreciate your question, as it has helped guide me into yet more understanding regarding my own experience. I know what you mean by being comforted by depression. However, I'm not sure comfort is the full expression of the experience. Let's explore it a bit. I was speaking with a dear friend who also has depression, and he suggested that his relationship with depression is similar to that of a person's in an abusive relationship. This rings of truth, but again, not quite. It has been the most consistently manifested feature of my character throughout my life. It's part of my identity. Now that I'm learning more about brain chemistry and how the whole thing is thought to work, I'm beginning to accept that it is natural, meaning that I'm not crazy and I'm not making it up. I've believed I'm crazy since I was a kid. I built my very identity on top of this notion. So, as a child, I had a problem with my brain. It went untreated and left later improperly treated, and for the rest of my life till now. It is an integral part of my character. My relationship with it is a near constant internal emotional conflict. I feebly try to refute its powerful and noxious notions of my value, capability, and empowerment. That's an abusive relationship. Passion. Depression for me is an expression of pure passion. The entire structure of my identity, the very foundation of my character, is interwoven with it. This, in what seems to be, to me, a bit morbid, is comforting. In another response on Quora, I spoke of gratitude for depression in regards to art. I see beautiful things. I feel them. This is not a curse. I also feel people. I feel their joy and pain. Because of my depression, I have a powerful relationship with compassion that transcends my ability to describe it. I can only say that it is passionate, and I like the passion. I need it. It feeds me. It is me. From here, gratitude settles in, and I can touch peace. The depression lets me through sometimes, or I push through, or I fight through. Sometimes I love through. Those ones hurt a lot. Gratitude is certainly comforting. So when I can perceive my experience with gratitude, as I do sometimes, I am comforted. As the gratitude is sourced from my identity, so too it is sourced from depression. I am comforted by my depression. Who knew? Another seemingly paradoxical notion that seems to be a continuing part of my experience. To be comforted by the very thing that creates hell on earth and be glad. Amazing. There was that one. So, I know from my experience that my perception of the world around me will be my experience of the world around me.
Right.
And so if I can go back in to my formative brain, which is an amazing thing that we have the capacity to do because I'm living proof that it works. If I can go in there and address these core issues with compassion for myself, compassion for myself, compassion for myself, I mean, it has to be a constant, then I can meet myself in the middle instead of on either side of that crazy conflict that seems to be so ceaseless. And because of the nature of my depression, one of the most difficult things for me to accomplish is compassion for myself. And it's a fascinating journey. It really is. And like I said earlier in the show, that I wouldn't go back and change anything. And well, the things that I would change would be the animals that I harmed. And I would have not picked up cigarettes. But beyond that, there's nothing I would change. And that's an amazing transformation from the me who even a year ago who would say that but not truly believe it. So a lot of these writings, they have the recurring theme. There's that fetid neurological soup that keeps showing up, all that stuff. Again, it goes back to that onion. As I unpack these perceptions based on these traumas, as I unpack them, I'm unpacking the same thing over and over again to a greater depth. And with each step forward, the insights, they may be directly related to an insight I only had weeks before, but this new insight, I go, oh yeah, right, and two come together, and there I am, one further step towards normal. I'm discovering my normal. So as I said, society wanted me to fit into those slots, but all I could see were tabs. And so trying to force myself to be the persona of this image, I essentially crippled myself before I ever even got started, right?
I agree.
Right.
Same. And now I can look back and as some of the things in my past were, I wouldn't change it.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't be me without those things having happened. And surprise, surprise, a wild E appears. No. I think he just wants to listen for a moment. which is perfectly fine. This has been a very, very raw, very powerful, very emotional show. Um, I've set a record for tears cried during a broadcast today. I think C's right there with me on that.
Yeah. Oh, definitely, man. Definitely.
Like I feel like we've cried rivers tonight in a good way.
Awesome.
We are getting toward the end of our allotted time slot here.
I see that.
So this has been, I think this may be, if there's if it's okay with you, unless you feel you have more to share, this may be a good time to wrap things up. And
Sure. May I had intended to play everybody some music when we opened, and I completely forgot about it because I was so nervous. But I can play a song to close, and then we could go. Would that be all right?
Yeah, if you would
Sure.
love music, yes, we'd love to hear it.
Yes, I would love to hear it.
So I picked up the harmonica in 2002 and fell in love with it, and developed an unconventional way to play it. But, so I don't necessarily have to use my hands because I hold it in my mouth. All right.
Wow.
Thanks.
Let me just say that was absolutely wonderful. I don't know what else to say, honestly. It was absolutely fantastic. I loved it.
Thank you.
That's absolutely amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I say it's been, as I said before, this episode has been raw and it's been emotional and powerful, but it has also been completely amazing.
Thank you.
I know that I'm confident in speaking for not only myself, but for E and C as well, that we would absolutely adore having you back on the show.
Oh, absolutely. I'd be happy to. Thank you.
Sure. This has been, it's been a wild roller coaster ride, but it's been absolutely great.
Thank you.
Before we go, I want to say that everybody out there listening, if you like what we do, if you want to give us some support, check out our webpage. We have a donations page up where you can donate through different sources. We also have a Teespring store where you can buy MI Mental merchandise.
Oh, awesome.
It is, everything that has been donated or bought from our store has gone completely back into recreating, or sustaining the podcast. We've had some very, very generous donors. We have amazing face masks that have the
Cool.
mental logo on it. There's tote bags and t-shirts and stickers.
Cool.
So there's something for everyone's taste. And they all come in different colors. Yay! Because we like pretty things.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Shiny stuff. I like shiny stuff.
Yes, definitely. I am absolutely thrilled that I got to play host tonight. I'm blown away by the people that listen, by the guests that come on this show, and it's always an amazing ride. And Jim, I want to thank you again for sharing your story, for sharing your soul with us. That this was life-changing.
Thank you very much. Thank you. This has been an amazing opportunity. Thank you for providing it. Thank you for providing it. I mean, truly, I am quite moved.
I have to thank you for sharing, for being so open.
Definitely.
It was wonderful, even if me and Bexy cried a lot.
Well, the only way we can break down the walls is by being honest.
Yes.
And it starts with being honest to ourselves. It doesn't mean that we have to go around and confess every freaking wrongdoing to every Joe Blow that we see, but there's accountability within ourselves that we can cultivate, and it's not a bad thing.
Not at all. It's It's hard and it's work. But once you take that first step forward and you start to step into the light, it is the most amazing feeling.
It's incredible. And anybody can do it. I firmly believe anybody can do it.
Oh, I do too.
Club. Recovery is not an exclusive club.
It is not. And I have one more thing to say on that, on the subject of, starting to heal and everything like that. This is my absolute favorite poem by Charles Bukowski, and it's called Nobody But You. Nobody can save you but yourself, and you will be put again and again into nearly impossible situations. They will attempt again and again through subterfuge, guise, and force to make you submit, quit, and or die quietly inside. Nobody can save you but yourself. And it will be easy enough to fall so very easily. But don't. Just watch them. Listen to them. Do you want to be like that? A faceless, mindless, heartless being? Do you want to experience death before death? Nobody can save you but yourself. And you're worth saving. It's not a war. It's a war not easily won. But if anything is worth winning, then this is it. Think about it. Think about saving yourself.
I love it.
I read that. I read that a couple years ago, and it's always, every time I see it, I always get a little teary-eyed. Of course, I've stayed teary-eyed tonight. But to all of our listeners out there, thank you for tuning in. I know you guys really make the show. We have the best listeners. We've said that from day one, but it's really the truth. We absolutely believe it. We have the best listeners ever. And so it's about that time. So this has been Am I Mental? And I've been your host, Bexy.
I've been the co-host, C.
There we go. She speaks. Yay. All right, guys. We love all of our listeners. We love our guests. And y'all have a wonderful night. Thank you for tuning in. And bye-bye. We'll see you next time.
Good night.
Good night.